Hello, everyone. I'm Rebecca Weber. This is your Amac podcast, Better for America. And if you haven't yet done so, go ahead and hit that subscribe button so that you never miss a Better for America episode. Now, today I'm thrilled. We have an amazing guest with us. We have the privilege of having one of the most powerful, persuasive, and experienced voices for parents and children in the country, a critical source of practical knowledge about education reform, and a wonderful example of how it is done right and effectively. Now, this is a woman who's a parent herself. She has served on parent-teacher boards in her own children's schools. She's been twice elected president of her county's parent-teacher board, co-founded Florida Parents Against Common Core. She served on the gubernatorial education committee and is a source of courage, leadership, and direction for all of those who want to make a difference and put power back in the hands of parents and families. Today, she is the director of education reform at FreedomWorks. I'm just so happy to have you with us, Laura Zorc. Laura, welcome. Thank you so much for being with us today.
Oh, well, thank you for having me today. I'm always excited to talk about what parents can do and what we can do to empower them to take back our local school districts.
And this is such an important topic today, Laura, especially now when we really do see that there is a battle for control over education, something that we haven't seen in prior decades. And you have been at the forefront of this movement to really return rights that should never have been lost to parents in the first place, to retake control of our education system, which obviously is supposed to serve families, not dictate to them. So what we're talking about here is our children's education and the role of parents in their education. If I could, Laura, help our 2.4 million AMAC members understand what's been happening in Florida, what the stakes are, and what they can expect by way of maybe similar battles around the country and other states, if you might.
Well, I think what we're seeing in Florida and across the country over the last 2 years, the rights of parents are under attack. We have these special interest groups. We have politicians who think they know what's best for our children. We've had mask mandates come through our teachers unions. We have the vaccination conversations to try to keep the vaccinations out of our schools. But I think something that I really sets an example for the rest of the nation is a bill that was just passed here in Florida, HB 1557, that gives parents the right to have control over their kids' education from K through third. A bill was just passed. It says that there will not be instruction or there will not be conversations that will be had in the classroom about gender identity and just sexual content. And we have had so many national groups come out against our governor, come out against the parents here in Florida. And that is just an example of what we're up against across the nation. It's not just an anomaly here in Florida. We saw what happened in Virginia. We're dealing with this in Arizona and Texas. But I'm going to tell you, our role as parents is definitely under assault. We have so many experts that want to tell us how to raise our kids.
You know, that is the truth. And what is really frightening to me as a mom and a recent grandma, I get together with my friends and other ladies that are in their early 50s, and a lot of them are saying, that's not happening. There's no need for a bill like that. That's really an attack on gay people. And I'm thinking to myself, my goodness, in my view, and the truth of the matter is, that is a lie that media is spinning in order to convince average American citizens that there's some sort of prejudice against gay people. It has nothing to do with that at all. What we understand about this bill is that it really empowers parents, but here's what it does. It protects our children. We're talking kindergartners, first grade, second grade, third graders. And there are people out there who will say we never needed a bill like that in the first place. What you're doing is such an inspiration. But can you unfold a little bit more and explain to those people who might say, or who do say, because I hear them, they say, this kind of thing is not happening. We know that it's happening and that this bill was needed. Can you share anything so that people have a better understanding of why this bill was necessary to begin with?
Well, I think this bill is one of the first steps in the right direction. It's not going to solve all the problems that we're seeing here in Florida, but I hear that quite often among my conservative friends. That's not happening here in Florida with Governor DeSantis and the leadership that we have. I live in a conservative county. There is no way that's happening. But what we have learned is that through these publishing companies and through these various organizations, this stuff is trickling into our school districts, and parents aren't even given the opportunity to be notified that it's coming in. And then our kids are coming home talking about the genderbread person, where they're having conversations in kindergarten about gender identity. And I was just on a podcast up in Alabama, and I had a representative saying that's not happening here. And I got flooded with phone calls from parents, and these politicians are so naive to the fact that it is happening. It's happening in our conservative states. It's happening in our conservative school districts, and it's coming in through our supplemental content, because with your curriculum, that goes through a process. Your textbooks go through a process, but this is trickling in through our supplemental materials that the public never even has an opportunity to see. And that's why you're seeing states like Arizona, who's trying to pass, I think it's Senate Bill 1211. It's an academic transparency bill, because we're trying to get ahead of catching this through the supplemental content, because as parents, we don't want to wait for our kids to come home and tell us that we were introduced to our body parts, and I was told this about my body parts, and is that right, mommy? It's very confusing for our kids, and it's really leading to some mental health issues that we're seeing. But one thing that we know about this bill here in Florida, it doesn't even only protect us as parents to be able to not allow our educators to have those conversations with their kids that are age inappropriate, or they're just not developmentally there yet. But what this also says is, if our child goes in to speak with a counselor at school, and they have a conversation with this counselor, we as parents have the right to know what our children had that conversation about. We had a parent here in Florida that went into, and we've seen this across, and I'm talking about Florida parents, but I'm going to tell you, this is happening all across the country, because it's the mindset that they're the experts. They know what's best for our kids. But we've had children go in, have conversations about their gender with these counselors, and then they're getting counseling on sex therapy, how to change your hormones. Do you want to go into the boys' bathroom or the girls' bathroom? And we're never hearing these conversations as parents, because that's kind of like their client private privilege. And what we're seeing is, what really opened up this bill that we're seeing here in Florida is there was attempted suicide by a student, and the school knew about the mental crisis this child was in, but the parent was never notified. And so what we're trying to do is, we're just trying to put the parents back in their role, have the school district step back and take their role, and really protect ourselves. So that
Well,
is generally, in a nutshell, what it's about.
yeah, and it's good that you point that out, that it's happening everywhere, that it's supplemental, meaning it could be a book, a club that the teachers decide that they're going to host, or an add-on to a lesson, and a conversation with a trusted guidance counselor who isn't sharing information back with the parents. And what's interesting is, we're talking about a governor who recognized the severity of that problem in and of itself, that it is not right to have an institution making decisions, um, like this about your children without having parents' involvement. I mean, that's just basic common sense if you ask me, and I think any good parent would agree. But again, we're talking about a governor who said, "Let me protect the kindergartners, the first graders, the second and third graders, whoever could be against that, a very good thing." Has got something wrong with their thinking. I want to ask you, since you know the history of the fight and how hard it is to take on the left and this ideology, that you can be whatever you want to be, a boy today, a girl tomorrow, that you are an oppressed, an oppressor, or you are someone who is oppressed, as critical race theory teaches us, based on the color of our skin. Uh, these narratives are very hard to take on, and teachers unions and those who want to tell parents what to do rather than listen. My question is, when did this all really happen? When did the takeover of public education happen? Because it seems like overnight it's become more something we're reading more about and seeing more about in the news, hearing more about. Parents are standing up. But when did this happen, teaching very young children to question their gender?
Well, I think that's really been coming in over the last 2 years, especially since January of 20, when Biden took office. I'm going to just be frank with you on that because I was a school board member from 2016 to 2020. I did not see it as much as soon as he took office. It was like the floodgates opened up from our federal Department of Education, and just giving the blessings for all this and just the protections that they've given to our school board members to do this, and also our administrators. But this fight has really been going on since 2012, when Common Core started coming into our school districts. Parents started fighting it then. But I'm going to tell you, COVID had really opened the eyes of parents, because when those teacher unions said, no, we're not going to host class in person, our parents were sitting just like we are right now on a monitor, seeing what the kids are being taught, and they were being exposed to what our kids were being taught. And so I'm going to say that was probably one of the first steps to really open up the eyes of parents to really get to their school board members and speak out. But another area that got our parents to the school board was the school closures. Parents knew it was safe to send their kids to school, but we had these teachers unions that said it wasn't safe. So our parents were getting to our school board members and trying to speak out and ask for opening of the schools. And that's when they started seeing on the agendas, they were approving diversity equity officers. They were approving all this mental health. And I really think a combination of all that has really opened the eyes of our parents. And that is why we are seeing a parent-led movement right now, is because our parents are informed, they're educated, and they, in 2022, parents are not going to go away. We're going to continue to fight against this woke agenda that our kids are up against.
Yeah, that's wonderful to hear, Laura. I do appreciate that. And AMAC members, boy, do they care about our children and our youth. And in their wisdom, they recognize that if we don't teach them right when they're young, then we're in trouble in the future. So, what do you tell parents and other concerned citizens who want to learn or learn more on what they can do and really lean into the fight and speak the truth and protect the long-standing rights of parents and ultimately protect a quality education for their kids? What message can you give to parents and grandparents who are listening right now?
Well, first of all, we have to get involved. We can't leave it up to anyone else to do it. And it's going to take us to show up to these school board meetings. And we actually train our parents. And on our website, parentsknowbest.com, we have a really great training. It's a parent empowerment. We'll help you through the steps to start your group. And then we want to empower you, because we have to take back our school boards. We know these decisions that are being made right now are basically on the school board level. So we're hosting schoolwork candidate trainings. We have had over 1,000 individuals join us for these trainings. We're so excited. We've had about 250 individuals that have filed. We've had individuals that have already won their election, and we're going to take back our school boards one seat at a time. But on top of that, at the same time that we're trying to save our public schools, we're going to change our legislation so that it's meaningful, lasting legislation. So we have another training we just started, and it's how to lobby your legislators, how to lobby this lasting change. And so we're empowering our parents with that basic knowledge, and they're just running with it. And we're seeing the fruits of all this labor over the last few months.
Yeah, that's great. I think for too long, many Americans like myself just assume that the public education system that I grew up in, pledging the American flag each morning, love doing that, respect for American institutions and for our history and traditions, American exceptionalisms. I mean, all of that I thought was still the norm in most places. And the more that I'm learning and speaking to people, and AMAC has been doing a lot of that over the last 2 years, really, we know now that that is not the case. And we also know that parents are standing up, speaking out, and refusing to be intimidated or canceled. So I really want to say thank you so much. I want to share with you one poll that AMAC members participated in. And this really just goes to the point that our members, they're very, very wise. Our question was, education continues to rank as the top issue for voters. Which of these statements closely matches what you consider to be the most important issue in education? And the number one choice was critical race theory and instruction on gender identity and sexual orientation does not belong in the classroom where young children are learning. School boards and teachers' unions have crossed the line and should be punished. And the number two choice was parental education rights are under assault around the nation, and I intend to only vote for those who will fight to protect the fundamental role parents play in the education for their children. So when our politicians and elected representatives are going to get reelected, they ought to consider the voice of the American people. They're speaking loud and clear. Parents across the nation are saying enough. And so my question is, do you think that this will be really the pivotal moment? Do you think that this will really shape the November 2022 races? And do you think that this could actually impact our 2024 presidential election? Because this issue is really going to get to a boiling point.
Absolutely. I think this is really going to shape our elections coming up in 2022 and 2024, because you look at what happened in Virginia, and I speak with these parents every single day, and we talk about how Youngkin won the vote of Democrat and independent parents in that state. And I see that going forward, that parents and the parents I'm working with, they're not political parents, but they know they have to get into that rat race to even make a difference in their child's education. But the parents I'm working with, they're not political. They have identified as Democrat or independent, but they're not looking at a party election. What they're looking at is who's going to align with me, who's going to say, I'm going to protect your rights as parents, I'm going to protect your child so that they can be free from this indoctrination of critical race theory and the gender identity. But also, I'm going to tell you what's going to be a huge part of these upcoming elections is who's going to be talking about allowing that money to follow the children. Because we know in our public schools that we're always going to be battling this left agenda, and parents are tired of that. We want our kids to have a quality education. That's why we send our kids to school. And every year we're battling this left agenda. So if you are running for an office, and if you're not talking about allowing that money to follow a student, you are totally behind in what parents really want.
Out of touch. That's right. there's someone who's out of touch, and that is one reason why we do this show is we take our marching orders from our AMAC members, and they tell us where to go and what to do. And so, a lot of the issues that we're very heavily focused on, we beat to the drum that AMAC members play for us. They have been loud and clear that this is an issue that they are especially concerned about, the indoctrination of children in schools, being taught that America is inherently racist, and it being asked at inappropriately young ages what gender they'd like to be. And it's so interesting that our own, Supreme Court nominee couldn't answer a simple question: how do you define a female, or how would you define a female? So it's a crazy woke world that we live in, and I think there's a lot of common sense in what you're saying. And for people listening, every one of you out there, um, you know, i- i- don't turn your back to the issue. I know it's uncomfortable. I know it's hard. Who wants to talk about this stuff when you're, looking to get together with, for tea or a glass of wine with a friend or another mother? But I think it's important because if we come together, we can be so much stronger. I do want to ask you one last question, if I can, because it so closely parallels the efforts that you and other parents and civic leaders have made in bringing our educational system really back to basics and making administrators and those on the left accountable. Do you think that the national leaders today, who should care about this issue, are leading on this issue? I know that town, city, county, and states, that's where the battle tends to fall. But on the national level, the national leaders in our country, do they understand the magnitude of what we're confronting here?
Well, I think as we opened up and in the conversations that you're having is it's not in my state. It's not in my area. And I think I think a lot of our national leaders need to get their head out of the sand and realize it is happening. And I'm hearing that quite a bit. We just heard the governor of Maryland come out and really go against DeSantis saying, well, we would never have that in our state. And I think they're naive to the fact it is in their state. But we do have some great national voices that are trying to speak out and do something. But on the majority, our leaders need to get their head out of the sand and realize this is happening in your district. It's happening in your state.
It's happening everywhere. And I was just speaking with a colleague earlier, and I said, I think it's a small group of people who have a lot of power, and therefore their voice is very big because they're controlling media. They're controlling, three branches of government, this leftist ideology. And so we're seeing it in the headlines, a pushback against any common sense legislation that helps protect children and strengthen families. And for all of you listening out there, and this is a smart group of people that tune in to Better for America, they get it. They understand that this is real. And, it could be as easy as saying to a friend or neighbor, hey, check out this interview, listen to this podcast, because what you've said, you've laid it out. It's very simple. There's a lot of information that you can learn online too. I'm going to encourage people, go to AMAC's website, amac.us. We're going to put it up here on the screen, and we're going to show you where you can get at some information regarding critical race theory, what it is, how to run for your school board, and win. We give you the tools, the outline, the guidance that you need to really get involved in your community. Laura, any other resources that you can share before we let you go, where listeners right now, can get on their laptop, their computer, and learn more?
Yes, and I really encourage each individual if you don't really understand what's going on in your school district, the first step that you need to take is you need to start writing some FOIA requests to your school district. And if you go onto our website, or I'll share it with you, and then you can share it out, as we have the steps of what type of language are they using? What are some terms to look out for? Because we know with critical race theory, they've changed the name and they're using different names. So we want to keep you up to date. What is that terminology to look out for? What are those first steps to really identify, is this stuff being taught in my school district? And then we give you those steps. Okay, it is there. So what do we do now? And so We have a lot of resources. I spend a lot of time trying to develop those, because I think that's key, is being able to train our parents on what action steps to take.
That's great. And that web address, did you rattle it off?
It's parentsknowbest.com.
Thank you. Thank you. You may have said it, but parentsknowbest.com. That's fabulous, Laura. Thank you so much for what you're doing, the courage that you show every day, the leadership that you're demonstrating to all of us, and the way in which you yourself educate, you both educating parents and the country why these issues matter so much to us. They do. They matter to our kids, our communities, and they matter for the future of our country. So thank you very much.
Well, thank you.
And behalf of on behalf of our AMAC members as well, too, because they do appreciate this sort of very patriotic and caring voice that you carry. So we are all so grateful. Thank you. And for all of you tuning in today, thank you so much for tuning in. If you have not downloaded the AMAC News app, you can go ahead and watch and listen to this show and track other breaking news right there from your smartphone. Please make sure to hit that subscribe button, like, follow, and share wherever you are on social media. Until next time, I'm Rebecca Weber. This is your podcast, Better for America. Thank you for being here. God bless you. Have a great day, everyone.
You're listening to the Better for America podcast, presented by Amac, the Association of Mature American Citizens. To learn more about Amac and all it has to offer, visit us at www.amac.us.